Very, very good morning, everyone. Charles here of Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis. It's great to be back. Just approaching 20 minutes to 8 here, local in Milan, Monday the 23rd of March 2026. So another week begins. Starting always on the DXY to see how the cross pairs could align with the DXY. And as I always say to those in Frgnt Mastery, using that DXY as a grand level of confluence will only benefit your trading and add confidence to the position that you are going to set on a cross pair. For example, GU, AU, EU, and also US dollar CAD for a very good example. So where are we? Well, I'm starting on the weekly time frame to get a good gauge of long-term overall. Where is my higher probable position based on the DXY? For example, is the DXY looking to be bullish or bearish for the week? And then with that said, let's say, for example, towards the end of the week, if we are looking to retrace back towards, let's say in this example, towards the upside, in my opinion, that would be a very high probable short position, let's say on GU shorts, if we're expecting a long on the DXY. I believe I got that correct. So, as I said, weekly time frames. So what happened last week? Well, we traded below that weekly 50 MA as a result of closing above it the previous week. So we were, or I was then anticipating a rejection from that weekly 50 MA. And as you can see by this wick to the low, closure above that weekly 50 MA, that's exactly what we got. So I'm pretty much expecting much of the same. However, if I bring that weekly time frame up slightly larger, I have a good indication of where the DXY could likely or could look to go in terms of the higher time frames. And as you can see by this arrow, I have that the DXY has every reason, let's say, to push further towards the upside. But as we know, on every trending pair, although that candle has closed, well, let's say bullish above the weekly 50 MA, there is of course a trend on the lower time frame that we could have looked for DXY shorts, also cross pair longs, let's say, last week. So with that said, although I'm expecting DXY bullishness coming out for the long term, I can anticipate a potential turnaround in the DXY short term, which will allow us to align with GU, EU, or AU long positions for good example. So let's take a dive into that on our lower time frames and see exactly when we can anticipate those turnarounds and does it make sense on the cross pairs. So the daily time frame, we are above that daily 50 MA as well, and looking at that daily time frame without taking it too far, we are simply making higher highs and higher lows. So that's why my anticipation is that, of course, we can expect those pullbacks, which will look like DXY weakness, which will push us into GU, EU, and AU longs. I do foresee any short-term long position on a cross pair, on the US dollar cross pair, could be very much so short-lived, as price could well look to retrace into that weekly 50 MA, potentially into the daily 50 MA, before then looking for that liquidity on under the underside of those EMAs, and then simply looking to create higher highs simply based on that higher time frame, on that daily time frame. But with that said, as an intraday trader, I am quite happy to trade the the short-term weakness of that DXY if it aligns nicely on those cross pairs, as I say. So again, going down through the time frame, looking to refine those areas. Where do we lie? So I've got this 4-hour order block just here. The reason why I'm looking to use this 4-hour order block is because there are no other 4-hour order blocks that are available. For good example, if I were just quickly to highlight this one here, we can see that 4-hour order block was tapped to perfection and actually gave us a lower low in the immediacy in terms of the DXY. So if we continue with that theory and move along, we have this 4-hour order block that is now available, and that 4-hour order block, in my opinion, was responsible for creating that immediate break of structure to the low. So like any trending pair, after a lower low, I'm expecting price to want to reach to create that lower high before creating a potential lower low continuation. Now I ask myself, does that make sense? Could the DXY potentially make a lower low on that 4-hour time frame, and where could that be? And looking at that daily time frame, we've got that daily order block over here. I agree, it has been mitigated, but nevertheless it is supported by that daily 50 MA, and when we refine this area down, we can see that there is again a 4-hour order block that is available. Why is that 4-hour order block of any importance? because that 4-hour order block is the order block that created our most recent high. That most recent high on the daily time frame is the reason why that weekly time frame closed above that weekly 50 MA. So as we look to create that high on the higher time frame, we're looking to create a higher low on the higher time frame before then making the higher high. That is why, as I said previously to the start of the video, my long-term theory is that the DXY is looking to long from potential its higher low area, which, as I said, that doesn't mean when the DXY is coming down I won't be looking for short term, if I get my words out Monday morning, for short term long positions on GU, EU and AU, even potentially US dollar CAD, if we can see that weakness coming into the market. So again, we can see on that 4-hour time frame exactly how it aligns. It makes sense across the 4-hour, it makes sense across the daily, and then of course the weekly time frame, it makes sense for price to want to reach potentially to those highs in terms of a weekly order block left up at these highs that is still available. As I said, as I didn't mention, rather, we have this weekly order block here that price just created that range between, as a result of the EMA squeezing price down, and of course this weekly order block was just sat there. That I must admit, price is still yet to break and close below, but just for clarity in the charts, I've removed it. So we have a weekly order block here where price is respecting. Another reason why price could potentially look to turn around in and around these areas. So as I do on all time frames or all pairs, I continue to refine those areas down simply to give me a better gauge of when I can expect to turn around in the DXY, which is pretty much the catalyst for me as I trade those cross pairs. So I'm just going to put an alert here as price starts to push itself into that 4-hour order block, and I'll put an alert down at the low in terms of the opposite direction for potential DXY strength. Then with that said, once these alerts go off, let's say I will look then on my cross pair that I will be actively trading, for example GU, which we'll go over it in just a brief moment, and then if it aligns in terms of structure and its own higher time frame bias, then potentially I'll look for a GU long position as the DXY is looking to get short. Why GU long? Well, if the DXY is weak and the cross pair, i.e. the pound, is going to look to perform bullish against that weakened cross pair, against the weakened DXY. So that's my thought process at the moment on the DXY. I'll probably keep this video nice and short, 7 minutes, a quick breakdown, and you will hear from me shortly as I look to compare that DXY analysis across my cross pairs that I will be trading actively throughout the remainder of the week. So thank you very much everyone for listening. I appreciate your patience as I was serving a 30-day ban on TradingView, which I am not proud to admit, but nevertheless you will not see any more links in my descriptions across the charts. So thank you again for your support. I appreciate your patience, and also thank you for your support across all of the Frgnt social media platforms. It is appreciated. I see it, and I see your comments as well on TradingView. So thank you ever so much. All the very best in your trading journey, and as I said, you'll hear from me soon. Thank you very much. Take care. That's Charles.